the stars tonight, holding on to love bathed in moonlight.
Martha stood in front of her mirror, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the necklace her daughter had given her years ago. It had been over 30 years since her last first date, and tonight, at 62, she felt like a teenager again, nervous, unsure, but quietly hopeful. Her reflection stared back at her, a mix of excitement and anxiety. What if this is a disaster, she thought. But as she heard her late husband's voice in her head, "Don't be afraid to live, Martha," she smiled. With a final deep breath, she grabbed her purse and stepped out the door. Martha's journey to this moment had been anything but straightforward. After losing her husband 10 years earlier, she had thrown herself into raising her 2 children and dedicating her energy to teaching. Love, she believed, was a chapter she had already written. The idea of dating again seemed almost laughable to her at first. She dismissed it whenever her best friend Linda brought it up. "I'm too old for romance," Martha would joke, but Linda wasn't buying it. "You're never too old for connection," Linda replied firmly. What finally pushed Martha to consider dating again was a moment at her daughter's wedding. Watching the newlyweds dance, Martha felt a pang she couldn't ignore. She was happy for her daughter but couldn't help wondering if she would ever experience that kind of joy again. Getting back into dating proved more challenging than Martha expected. Linda encouraged her to try online dating, but the thought of creating a profile filled her with dread. "How do I condense my life into a few sentences?" she lamented. With Linda's help, Martha created a profile that felt authentic. She wrote about her love of gardening, her dream of traveling to Italy, and her passion for volunteering at the local literacy program. "Be yourself," Linda reminded her. "The right person will appreciate you for who you are." Then came the flood of messages. Many were awkward, like the man who wrote, "You look like my third ex-wife," or another who simply said, "Hi." Martha started to doubt whether this was worth her time, but then there was Carl. His message was thoughtful and specific. "I love your smile, Martha. I noticed you're a gardener. I'm an amateur bird watcher, and I think we'd have plenty to talk about. Care to chat?" His warmth stood out, and after a few days of messaging back and forth, Carl suggested meeting in person. This was a turning point for Martha. She hesitated. What if it was awkward? What if she wasn't ready? "The worst thing that happens," Linda reminded her, "is you get a funny story to tell. The best? You meet someone who makes you smile." Their first date was at a cozy cafe downtown, a neutral and comfortable choice. Martha arrived early, nervously sipping tea as she waited. When Carl walked in, carrying a small bouquet of daisies, Martha's nerves softened. "I read that daisies symbolize new beginnings," Carl said, handing them to her with a warm smile. Their conversation was easy and genuine. Carl shared stories about his career as a retired architect and his love for building elaborate treehouses for his grandchildren. Martha opened up about her years as a teacher and her late husband. What surprised her most was how Carl responded, with empathy and understanding. "It's not about replacing the past," Carl said. "It's about honoring it while building something new." His words resonated deeply with Martha, and by the end of the evening, she felt a spark she hadn't felt in decades. Over the next few months, Carl and Martha's connection deepened. They attended local art shows, went on quiet walks in the park, and even hosted a game night for their friends. Together, they began planning a trip to Italy, a dream they both shared. Martha hadn't anticipated that by putting herself out there it would be scary, but it was also the first step toward something beautiful. Martha also realized that embracing her age and life experience made her more attractive, not less. Romance at 60 didn't look like it did at 20, and that was okay. It was about companionship, laughter, and shared understanding. Martha's story didn't just change her life, it inspired those around her. Friends began to see her as a source of encouragement. "You're proof it's never too late," one neighbor told her after Martha shared her experience with online dating. Her children were also thrilled. "You deserve to be happy, Mom," her son told her one day. Seeing their mother rediscover herself and find joy gave them hope for their own futures. As for Martha, the joy wasn't just in finding Carl, it was in rediscovering her own capacity for growth and happiness. She often reflected on how love doesn't have an expiration date. It adapts, surprises, and evolves, even when you least expect it.
Forever you and me, under the stars tonight, holding on to love, bathed in moonlight.
Martha and Carl are planning their trip to Italy, but Martha's biggest journey has been the one within herself. She tells anyone who will listen, "It's never too late to write a new chapter. You just have to be brave enough to start." For Martha, love in her golden years wasn't just about finding someone else. It was about finding herself, her courage, and her joy again. And in doing so, she proved that the best stories often unfold when you're willing to take a chance. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end. We truly appreciate your support. If you found this content enjoyable and informative, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us create more great content for you. Until next time, take care and see you in the next video. Goodbye.